We are not there to drive the conversation. We're there to
Mhm.
evoke. We're there to hold the space for whatever emerges. That's a very different energy than even a one-on-one conversation.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Ivana Valley, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time.
Welcome back, Ivana. It's a sweltering day here. We're talking readiness, and what a great topic. To coach or not to coach? Really, that is the question. What comes to mind when you think about readiness for coaching?
Yeah, for me, it's like there's a layer of readiness when you've been doing one-on-one coaching, but this readiness looks so different and can really create challenges in the conversations if the coach doesn't have that discernment going in up front, and what does that look like? How does that affect the dynamic of the group, the intention of what you're creating through this group? So readiness, I think, is actually, very central. And I can't help but go, like, even ethics. There's a lot of layers here, but so that's what I'm thinking. I've got a lot of ideas around when I think of readiness, the evolution of readiness, and how do our core competencies fit into that, but how the responsibility we have not only to the person who wants to come into the group, but to the members in the conversation, including yourself.
Yeah. And I think you've really raised, there are multiple layers to this question, just even starting simply with, what do people expect? I still think in 2025, coaching has many different labels. And going back to core competencies, what is coaching and what is not? What are we offering? What are we not offering? And are we making that clear?
Are we clear, may I say? Are we even clear what we're offering? Especially because we see this in our conversations in our classrooms. A lot of people come in like, what's the difference? Right? What's the difference? And so for me, it's like, we need to know what we're offering in order to then be able to communicate that. So that way the person is saying, hell yeah, I'm in.
Join you for this type of conversation.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And that is use the word, I think, discernment. It's discernment of what is being offered. What type of conversation are we having?
Yeah.
Because not every conversation is coaching. And for those that might just be dropping in to hearing us for the first time at the Coaching Money podcast, we've done past episodes on what's the difference between group coaching and facilitation. What is coaching? What is not coaching? And coaching is not content in the group coaching realm. We're really co-creating with our clients. Are the people ready? And are they a good fit with each other? So what blows my mind, and blows my mind is a strong statement, but back in 2009, even 2019, 2009, one of the best practices I unearthed when I was writing effective group coaching was the importance of the pre-call, right? Are you doing a 15-minute pre-call or half an hour, whatever you would like to do, but are you meeting with each participant before they step into the room? Do they understand what's being offered and what they need to do to be ready to engage in the coaching process? Because it needs to be driven by the client. If we are driving the bus, that is not coaching. That is probably facilitation or training. And so in order to co-create, we've got to set people up for success. And even the simple act of, are you booking pre-calls? It's very easy. People are busy. We're busy. But what is the cost if you don't have that initial conversation? One, to check, is this the right time? Is this the right process? Am I the right coach? Is this the person the right fit for the program? And how do they also maybe connect in with each other? Because that intangible group dynamics element is so key. So I've just put a lot on the table. Out of all those things, Ivana, what are you always keeping your antenna up around?
Yeah, for me, it really is that good fit. We talk about this around this connection, the importance of connection, but are people actually at a place? Like, I deal with this when people are in relationship transitions, even transition change for that matter, whether you've lost your job, whether you choose to leave, whether you've been left, like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good time and a good fit, right? And so I think for me, it's that balance of, yeah, like we want to have people in the conversations, but are they ready? And is the group that we're creating in the context of group coaching, is this dynamic of this group a good fit? What is that? I'm just even thinking about that retreat. I was trying to create a retreat a couple of years back in Italy around that. And I did, well, I'll call them sales calls, but it was part of the onboarding because I wanted to make sure it wasn't enough just to put a deposit. I wanted to make sure that you were actually ready with what I was offering.
Yes.
Do you even know what you're offering? And if
Yeah.
they are ready, how does that dynamic play with the group? Because as you said, group coaching, we're all on our individual journey, but there does need to be a little bit of a solid base
Yes.
around the people we're bringing into this conversation. So good fit is, I think, really important, and it looks different ways. But I agree. The pre-call is fundamental. After I took your essentials 4 or 5 years ago, I now like that is an absolute. And if I can say even one step before that, so that way there's no surprises on the pre-call is your marketing copy, your sales copy.
It
How
all
are
has to
you?
point and be clear.
Yeah.
Has to
Yeah.
be clear, especially in an environment where in the marketplace itself, so much is being offered.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of interesting conversations recently about the predatory nature of people external to the coaching industry, but who are there to help. And, I think we're at a space now in mid 2025 where a lot of things are getting washed out and, things will settle. Things will settle. And I think, the good things rise to the top. But it's just interesting because I'm hearing so much volume around that. And so readiness as a coach, are you ready? Like, are you ready to coach? Is this really what you want to be doing now in this moment? There's a lot to hold in a group context. And so is now the right time? What is the driver of this? I think a lot of coaches hear, oh, it's important to scale. Yes, and scaling offers its own opportunities and challenges as well.
Totally.
So, even from a business perspective, is the business ready to scale? Have you got ways to accept even payments, right? Have you got elements in place so that it's easy for people to be onboarded? And when I say
systems.
onboarded, it really is, if people aren't set up for success, that's going to create its own challenges as well. So,
yeah, I love that because I think you're talking to so much. I'm hearing like the business side of it, the system side of it, like also
the
even where
client
you
side
are.
of it.
Yeah, the client side, like where are you with your client base? Is like, where does this fit in your quote unquote funnel? And where are you as a coach to take on the group dynamics? Like it's one thing to offer new product or service. It's another thing to actually get yourself skilled. Doesn't mean perfect, but have the skills to be able to step into this arena because it does become a lot more complex.
Yeah.
And are you comfortable to that growth journey, that mindset? We talk about mindset as coaches. I think even as we talk about the scaling to group or the coaching many, even that piece, like where's your mindset? Where's your level of failure? Where's your level of, I need to go and learn this. Sorry.
control as well. Like, I think
Yeah.
the big one is control. Are you ready to not drive the bus?
Exactly.
And even yesterday, I was having a conversation, someone who very seasoned executive coach, but unwilling to let go of control.
Yeah.
We can't. That is not our role. We are not there to drive the conversation. We're there to evoke. We're there to hold the space for whatever emerges. That's a very different energy than even a one-on-one conversation. So yes, how are we showing up? And what are the edges? Right? We've done so many calls, and if people have joined us either in essentials or mentor coaching, it's like there's always going to be a competency, regardless of how long we coach. That is our edge. That is our learning edge. And maybe it's presence. Maybe it's creating awareness. Again, creating awareness in the dynamic of a multi-person group where everyone's on their own pathway with hopefully shared interest, but sometimes not.
Yeah.
How do we really, how do we need to show up? How do we hold that expanse so that people do get traction? People are clear on how their pathway may be different. And that it's not just, about accountability, but it's about the group dynamics. And do we understand? Have we had the experience of being able to take a step back? Because we're always parts of groups, but being part of a group does not mean I am aware of what is happening within the group. And that's a whole other layer to this work.
That is a whole other layer. As you were sharing that, Jen, what came to mind is also like the readiness and the dynamics of that group, because everyone is on their own journey. How do we work with the group in owning their own journey and not getting intermeshed, into we all have to be on the same journey? No, we're all here for a common theme. I think that's what's needed from the coach. Like, and that's not control. That is those conversations. That is that presence.
Yeah.
That is that listening.
Yeah.
That is that creating that trust, safety, that container, which will then in turn create that connection. I think a lot of people can say, oh, I'm going to do group coaching.
Because they've heard they should.
Yeah, because they've heard they should, or that's the next thing in my business because I want to scale. Yes, it is a avenue. It is a tool, but it doesn't come just whether you've done a lot of facilitation, a lot of training, there's different skills. And we really are leaning from those competencies,
So let's make it really real, right? I think people might be listening and going, well, okay, so what do you mean? Like, what is the pathway? And this is where it gets complex. Imagine you've got 6 people. Imagine you've got 8 people. Imagine you've got the threshold of 15 people, right? Each one of those people are likely motivated by different things, have different goals, might have had different experiences with coaching, right? Probably have a different take on what it means to be part of a group, right? Like, I think there's also the whole layer of, are you a group person? We aren't all group people, and that's okay, right? I think that's okay. But we need to recognize, are we ready to show up in a group, which may mean, I'm going to go back to that loss of control, right? Like, anything can happen when you're with a group of people, with a group of individuals. So are you confident with self as a coach? Are you confident with the process? Because that's all we really do control in group coaching is the process, the bookends, the start, the end. And beyond that, it's up to everyone in the group as to where they want to go. And is each group member ready for that as well? Because group coaching, people have probably heard me say this or read me write this, it's about width. It's not always about depth. And that's a very different experience as a client, not only as a coach, but as a client. So how are we raising these elements? And what it's automatically making me think of too is like with quote unquote onboarding, right? It's not just about the one-on-one call, but it's also about having the conversation with folks. Like, what has been your experience, not only with coaching, but with groups? Here is something you might expect. Not you will expect, but you might expect. Because the power of the group is only as strong as people are leaning in. And if people are leaning back, that's going to show up.
Yeah. And I think that's a great little, maybe not out the door week one of your, 6-8 week group coaching program, but I think that's a great marker to go, oh, wow, they're all leaning back. Like they're really leaning on the coach. That's a marker. That's an indicator of, hold on, like there's something that is not happening here. Is it that I'm controlling? Is it that I actually haven't empowered the group? I haven't co-created the journey, the roadmap. So these are like those, they're not nuances. These are markers of, whoa, hold on. And I think you raise a really good point. I haven't really given it much thought, to be honest with you, around like having those conversations individually around how do you do with groups? What does that look like? And as the coach, not assume, because I think this is good coaching language. I share up front, hey, I'm going to invite you to participate and share in small groups, the bigger group conversation. I'm going to invite you to do some individual reflection on something and then bring what is relevant to the group. I also share, and I'm going to invite you to listen to what you're hearing from the others as it might resonate with you or it might not. Because all this is valuable information.
It is. Again, I'm going to go back to that quote of it's setting people up for success. If we don't know what to expect, it's really, really hard. And even as we're talking about this, right, I think the variety of what is getting put in the bucket of group coaching, very different to have that conversation with someone who is part of a group of 8 versus someone who's part of a group of 15. Then we have the outskirts of what is sometimes being labeled group coaching, but is really group facilitation or a webinar. Oh, I'm now coming to a call and there's 50 people on the line. That is not group coaching, right? That is maybe bringing a coaching approach to a webinar, but it's not the deep dive of helping people connect with each other and learn with and from each other. It's more likely in a group of 50, it's a chalk and talk, right? It's I'm a leader and I am telling you, we're talking. But even in that, like, how are you helping people set up for success? Because if their notion of group coaching has been the small group, that's going to be rub. That's going to lead to challenges as well. Then there's the peer component, as you said, right? What level of peer engagement can people expect? Are you going to have just the group calls, or is there an expectation that people have a learning buddy or a learning partner throughout the process? If we're ready for that commitment, right? One thing I've noticed in the last few years, especially, is a question in these pre-calls: how much time should I be budgeting? Like, time is a non-renewable resource. So how are we also letting people know this is what you can expect? This is going to be group time. If there's one-on-ones with the coach, if there's a learning partner or a triad, how much time will it take?
Yeah, because that will dictate, that may change their level of commitment, their choice of saying yes. And I think we have to be okay with it. Just like we ourselves know when, that's really nice, but are we listening for that? Or maybe not, and not assuming, but being curious. So I'm noticing you're not saying very much in what I'm sharing. What's coming up? It's having that one-on-one conversation, before.
Yeah. And I think very much it's also contextual. So for those coaches listening that are systemic coaches, right? No surprise that there may be multiple processes, dual processes happening. Like, what is our relationship to being in group? Are we, from a cultural lens, in a group experience. And this was really brought home to me a few years ago when I was doing some learning in a different culture. And, I think certainly in my own socialization and cultural upbringing as a Canadian, as someone who worked throughout Central and South America, where community was the heart of everything. And I think in the communities that I am part of, we retain our individualism, but there's also a real collectivism mindset. There's a doing things for the greater good is implicit in the communities that I've had the privilege of being part of. And I think that is not always an assumption. That is not always a mindset.
Yeah.
I was challenged a few years ago by a supervisor who said, well, you must have imposter syndrome. I thought,
yes, you said.
Well, I often go back to this. It is like, but part of me not being able to say I have imposter syndrome is I do a lot of my work and I do a lot of my life in groups. If I can't show up as being real, then how can I, and in the Caribbean, there's can you sleep in your skin? Right? Like, can I sleep in my own skin every day? That's just been part of how I've been socialized from a young age.
Yeah.
And that though, I think in groups, you can get called out on stuff. I see this even in my own child. He's 20.
Okay.
He's an only child. I'll say something off the cuff that I would think really just would deflect off someone because I grew up in very intensive peer work relationships. I went to camp. I was a camp counselor. My first 7 years of a job, we lived and worked in the same office space. Our office was upstairs. Our kitchen was downstairs. And so feedback is feedback. It's not something that is difficult. But, often my son will turn to me and say, you're really bullying me. And I'm like, I'm not intending to bully you. I'm just trying to provide some feedback. But I also say, what would it be like if you had a sibling, right? It would just be so different because I think as siblings, right? Think about our socialization as young kids. And maybe this is a generational thing, but certainly as a kid growing up in the 70s with our siblings, with my sibling, there's a lot of we were very similar, but very different. And so teasing was teasing, whether it was right or wrong. It was just part of the context.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded story, but how are you showing up in groups? Has it been part of your dynamic? Right. I was in a choir. I was a synchronized swimmer. To be a synchronized swimmer, you have to synchronize.
Yes.
That is probably synchronization and group work at its peak. I was a rower. If you were not in sync with your mates,
yes,
you would catch crab. You would actually break the flow of not only the boat, but the crew. And so again, how do we synchronize with others? What's our experience? And are we in a moment where maybe synchronization is not the thing? Because I also want to call that out. Because not everything has to be group. But if we are saying yes to group, are we all in?
Well, what's coming to me, Jen, this is really wild, is this whole synchronization, but also, and what you said earlier, and can you sleep in your own skin?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's both. So how can we be in synchronization and still be comfortable, retain our, and I think that really is the dance of group coaching. How can we honor the individual in who they are and what they stand for, while also,
in the collective,
leaning into the collective? Because I think that speaks to who we are. How can we be, where are we on that journey as a coach? Where are we on that journey as self? Maybe even before coach, and where are we as the leader, the group coach of these dynamics that are going to show up? Love to share. Right now, I'm going through the Coaching Diverse Groups and Teams with you, one of the programs in the pathway. And what's really being activated for me is that disruptor, that provocateur. When in a group do I need to be able to lean in and say the unsaid with kindness, with in service of the group. And so to me, that's, you talked about the edges earlier. I'm leaning into that edge. Why? Not because I need to develop a skill, because I know it's going to be in service of the group.
People. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think part of that is as a one-on-one coach, we've been able to maybe be more selective in the type of client. And you might have some of that in group, but you can't totally predict and know who exactly is coming up, because as you know, I'm not a systems coach, but I like playing in this arena. There's no two groups are the same. And so it's the human experience. So whatever you think you're getting and what shows up are likely may be different. So how can you be with that? How can you see the synchronization while also honoring that, that individual?
Mm-hmm.
And what is your growth edge as a coach to be able to lean into that?
Yeah. And, I think that focus on the individualism and the collective space is just a really important framing of what a majority of group coaching looks like and sounds like. Not always, right? There's many, many derivatives of this work as well.
Sure.
And so, in this episode, we're really focusing much more on a group experience, but we have to also put this in the context of the team experience too. Right? Now, what's different is in a team, we're not part of the system. We're coming in and leaving their system on a regular basis. But it's, dynamics, projections, right? All of these things. It's really interesting how that is showing up and what it's calling us forward, who it's calling us forward to be, what it's calling us forward to do, what it's calling us forward to explore, revisit. Right? Visit and revisit and revisit, because issues will show up in interesting ways. If we haven't addressed them, they'll keep they'll keep showing up. Different ways, different volumes.
And that's whether you're working with a team, that's whether you're working with someone in relationships, like in a family system, like that, totally. I don't know if this is totally off point or not, but also like conflict style, like as a coach, like how do you deal with conflict? Do you shy away? Do you face, because that will show up in team and it may show up in group.
And as go back to personal experience, but like, how do you show up in conflict in different types of relationships as well? Because we may be very comfortable looking at it on one lens, but in other relationships, it might be like,
That's true.
not showing up in the same way. So lots to this conversation. And, as anything, and with all of our podcast episodes here at the Coaching Betty podcast, we want to really just heighten awareness. Awareness is key. And the evolution of a group or team coach, like one-on-one, is multifaceted, and it's year. You might think, oh yeah, I've really got this group thing. And then all of a sudden a group shows up and it's like, oh, maybe I don't quite have that. But, again, it's learning with and from each other. So we don't need to shoulder everything. There's one more piece to all this, that like sometimes group dynamics are group dynamics, and it may not have anything to do with the coach. I would assert that as well. However, how are we showing up? Are we holding the space for possibility versus holding the space for dysfunction?
Right.
Are we really holding our clients naturally creative, resourceful, and whole? So there may be also a stage at which it's not good to take on a group. Maybe we need to step back and say, I'm no longer able to hold this as a creative entity. But creative does not mean positive 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So what are you taking? I think we've had a pretty good conversation here on readiness.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways from our discussion today?
For me, I think there's that whole concept of individualism in the collective space. So how do we, that synchronization, and how do we highlight, and synchronization can be in sync, but it can also be where are we not in sync? And that's also a little bit of synchronization, if that makes sense. And then that piece of, can I, as Andre says, can I sleep in my own skin? And I think that's really, to me, I see that like at a coach level, I see that as an individual participant level, but I also see that how can I sleep in my own skin, even in the concept or in the dynamic of coaching many, whether it be team or group. And I know team, we think team first, individual second, but there is that level of identity.
Yeah. Yeah. Identity is really at the core of a lot of this, right? And what is our identity? What is our identity as an individual? What is our identity in a collective system? What do we find confronting? And what support do we need too, right? Like, again, as a group coach, we are not the only leader of the process. We are leading with those that we coach. So I think, again, noticing too, what are you shouldering? I see so many group coaches trying to wrap themselves into pretzels because the group is not doing the work. Well, have you allowed for the space for the group to do the work? I often, for those that have joined us, and I've led the group coaching essentials with you, you might have seen me, this might have happened, or maybe I've talked to it, where sometimes the groups that form the best are the ones that in first call, I have to step away. Maybe there's like a delivery at the door. But if I haven't let the group figure it out themselves, if I've been over orchestrating as a group coach, then I might have actually sort of taken away some of the power of the group. Right? So again, how are you empowering? I think you raised that question earlier, but like, really, are you empowering the group to be a group?
Yeah.
Are you wanting to lead and orchestrate the entire process?
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So, as always, Ivana, I love sitting down on a Tuesday morning, having these conversations.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for our listeners, resources, right? We've talked about a lot of different things. I think certainly the pre-calls, group dynamics. I cover these both extensively in effective group coaching and in From One to Many. I would just say one thing that I'm always interested that, like, 13 years after publication, I still get calls from people saying, I can't find the digital chapters of the book. So if you're reading From One to Many right now, head on over to From One to Many. It's spelled from number 1, number 2 sign, many.com. And you can find the downloads under the downloads page. You will be asked for a code, which is in your book, but it's also 4411. And there are 3 digital chapters there. And those are group coaching in action, team coaching in action, and marketing. Our pathway program that Ivana referred to earlier, it's a 70 hours or 125 hours of CCP approved programming. And just like we might feel like we're meandering in this call, there are so many layers to this work, of which group dynamics, readiness is just the start. So you don't have to do it alone, right? It's like, I think a lot of coaches sort of find their way through it, but when were you last part of a group? I would throw that out to our listeners. When were you last part of a group? How are you learning with and from others? What I really enjoy about the more advanced courses in our pathways, it really is that collaborative learning experience where each one of you creates the container with us by bringing in your magical strengths as well. So set up a call with us. We'd love to talk. Part of it is readiness. Are you ready? Are you ready to stretch as a coach as well? Are you ready to take your group or team coaching to the next level?
Beautiful.
Well, that's it for a Tuesday.
All right.
We're back together next week.
Yeah.
Recording another episode. These come out bi-weekly, and you can always find them at coachingmanypodcast.com. or your favorite podcast player.
Awesome. If you liked what you heard or saw, please give us a like, share this with your community, and on your favorite podcast player, subscribe to our show and stay in touch with what's the next episode. So thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Enjoy your conversations.